Now, let's go ahead and move on to this second topic of the day. And Larry, I'm gonna come to you first on this one right here. This is a very, very, very interesting topic, and don't even know who this guy is, but I think I will now. And I have this report right here. What is this from? The Insider.com. And it says California movie producer secret prostitution ring. And just to let you know, guys, if you're watching this in the live or in the replay, there is a link down to this article down in the description box for you to read at your own leisure. A California movie producer was indicted on charges of running a secret prostitution ring under the guise of a production company. This came out July the 15th, so just a few days ago. And a California movie producer was indicted on charges this past Thursday. Dylan Jordan, who goes by the aliases of Daniel Jordan, Daniel Maurice Haddon, and Daniel Bowler, was arrested in California but faces charges in the Southern District of New York. As alleged, for years, Dylan Jordan operated an extensive and far-reaching prostitution business using a purported event planning company and a moving production company to conceal the proceeds he made from exploiting women. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss says. It goes on to say, now the party is over and the film is wrapped, she added. From about 2010 to May 2017, federal prosecutors said Jordan operated an international sex ring with the help of United Kingdom-based Madame, who was not identified in court filings, to share and refer customers. The indictment said that he maintained a roster of women who resided around the United States and who, in exchange for payment, performed sexual acts for his clients. And it's not that lengthy, but at times Jordan's further disguised the nature of the check payments made to women for their prostitution services by describing them as modeling fees, appearances fees, consulting fees, massage therapy fees, and house party fees, among other things, the indictment said. But the FBI, in its mission to protect our citizens, uses every tool at its disposal to amass those who violate federal law and assist the impacted victims. Cross continue. We encourage anyone who is victimized by this defendant and anyone with additional information to contact our Newark field office. This is wild. This is crazy. This is bananas, but also kind of expected, to be honest with you. Larry, coming to you first, man. How you feeling about all this?
I'll tell you, when I was reading this article, I was just thinking, please don't let this dude own a pizza shop with like a basement. Wow. You know, yeah. You know, the queued up folks would have been all of Twitter, just like, see, we told you. But man, I'll just tell you, I mean, when you look at the people they said that he's worked with in the past, I think to myself, people will just not get out of their own ways. I'm like, you're a movie producer who has worked with people like Maggie Gyllenhaal and I forgot some of the other people they did, but I mean, you see his filmography, the dude is working.
Yeah.
He has a production. It's not like he's not working. I'm thinking to myself, like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, that's just like if you find out that, I don't want to put him on the same level as someone like Mel Gibson or something, but you find out some producer like that's in Hollywood that's worked with all these people and is actively working, and he's just like running a sex ring. It doesn't make any sense why you do that. But I will tell you, this does bring up another issue, which I do think is something that should be talked about. People don't want to bring it up all the time, but I still think that prostitution should be legalized. I think we need to legalize it federally so that people can actually be protected, because we have so much that we find out later when we talk about all these instances of sex trafficking and women being taken advantage of. All this stuff happens because it's illegal and it's under the table, and people are trying to keep stuff on the DL. Well, if you can bring all this stuff above board, then you can have people getting registered. You can have people getting their I don't know, some sort of health sex card that shows that they have good sexual health, that they've been tested, that they're paying their taxes. You know, you can see who comes at, not you, but if the person is seeing a client, you don't have to worry about that person getting beat up or killed, because they know that maybe the person has a registry of who they are. That it's legal, so there's no need to hide stuff anymore. You don't need to be under the table with it. It's just, I think stuff like this is, because it is illegal, it just allows it for so much more terrible stuff to happen to the women that are involved in this industry instead of protecting them. I think that I think keeping it illegal only protects the men and not the women.
That's a good point. I've heard that argument before a number of times. It makes sense to me to go ahead and legalize it. I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree. I'm not going to give my opinion on that. Do whatever you want to do with your life. I skimmed over this article twice. First time I was like, but then the second time I was like, well, I mean, as long as he wasn't exploiting the women, and if there was everybody was in the 100% agreement, like, no, this is just my business, I do service, that's another thing. I'm not here to judge anybody, but I mean, if he's taking advantage of people and exploiting them and all that, and I don't know all the details, that's ridiculous. There's no room for that at all. How are you breaking all this down, Elliot?
Yeah, no, man, this is and a couple of people have mentioned in the chat. I mean, this is one of millions of horrible, terrible, disgusting stories that take place in Hollywood and people using their position of power. Harvey Weinstein comes to mind, and just, hey, you want to be in a movie and gets sucked into the whole industry and, taking advantage of women. Is just, it's disgusting, man. And I don't know if the details of the article breaks down how long this has been going on. I think about 2013, about 7 years now. Yeah. So it's just like, and it brings up the other question too, in regards to how the industry runs. Just like, as Larry kind of alluded to, just like you think you're working with a producer and you think they're a good person and providing opportunities for people to work and get on sets. And then they're doing this on the side. It's just like, it's just crazy, man. And again, going back to this Hollywood conversations, just about the people you just don't know and you think they have good intentions, and it just gets stuff like this comes out. So I'm glad he's called, and this is one of many producers that I'm pretty sure are kind of looking behind their shoulders and their backs now, and they're cracking down on this stuff. So as far as the conversation about prostitution being legalized, that's a whole stream within itself, man. I've heard the same conversation too, that it should be, something to consider. But yeah, I mean, that would be obviously with legalizing that comes with all the red tape, and obviously still people doing it illegally. So I mean, that's a interesting conversation to have within itself. But in regards to this gentleman, I'm glad he was called.
Right on. Pound of payment, $2. A card with a best used by date. Thank you so much for the super chat. I do appreciate it.
I'd see like Ghost. I think it was Ghost Black Blue, whatever, was saying something like 90% of all the females are taken advantage of. I'm not sure that that's true. I think that might have been true at one point when you had these girls out there working on the streets and had pimps and all that stuff. But so many sex workers nowadays are what people call independent sex workers, and they maintain their own websites and their own client lists and everything like that. And so a lot of these women have control of their own life and their own, they say what, who they're going to meet and when they're going to meet and how much it's going to cost and all the other stuff. They're not paying someone else to do all this for them. They're not having someone that's taking their money and taking advantage of them. There's still women out there like that, but I'm not going to say that it's 90%. And I just think that if you have, this is the problem. If you hire a prostitute and you go see a prostitute and you decide, I'm an asshole, I want to beat her up and take her money or rape her, the prostitute can't really do anything. She's working she's working in an industry that's illegal.
Is that true, bro?
Kind of like, I mean, technically they can. I mean, they can go to the cops and say, hey, I'm a prostitute. I hired this guy. This guy hired me and he didn't pay me, so it's rape. Or this guy came over and he beat me up and took my money. And I hate to cut you off, but you can't. That's what I was looking for. You can't combine those two. Those are two different things. If you say, hey, I this guy said he would pay me for sex and he didn't pay me, I don't think you can sue for that. But if you turn around and say that he beat me up, that's just assault. Because they've had this before, where they've had this debate on whether or not if a person hires a prostitute and then does not pay, if that is considered rape, because the consensual part of that engagement is contingent on the payment.
I see what you're saying.
So once you withdraw the payment, there's you would have to assume the consent is also withdrawn. And so I think that basically what happens is when these girls get raped or they get taken advantage of, and they go to the police don't often do anything. You know, sometimes they don't even take reports. Oftentimes the cops take advantage of the women themselves. And so it's just, they end up being taken advantage of by everybody in the process. So I think that when you legalize it, then you take some of that shame of the illegality out of it. Mm-hmm. There still might be the social stigma of it that you're a prostitute. Yeah. I mean, there's no difference than somebody having the stigma placed on them because they're a stripper or because they're a porn star or something. But you take some of the stigma of the illegality out of it. So if something happens to them, they can at least go to the police and say, hey, I was robbed. You know,
remember that conversation I told you about? We had that conversation by the Facebook group that kicked me out because I made that comment that they didn't like.
Yes.
So I got booted out this group because apparently I got offended with a question I asked because it was doing I won't get into all that, but how did it go, Larry? So that somebody in the comment, I think it was Mara Cherie, she was saying that sex workers work, and they were saying that it should be, you know, legalized or promoted or protected. And I was like, yeah, it should be protected, but I don't think it should be promoted. You know, and I think I was going to pose a question like, okay, what you want your son or daughter, you know, being a sex worker, is that something that you will promote? And I forgot whether I forgot exactly what it was said. Maybe I should have had all my ducks in a row before I brought the topic up. But me personally, I'm on the fence because while they should be protected, I still feel, I'm not judging about it. I just don't feel like it should be promoted. And it was like, well, if you watch porn, then you're a hypocrite. Well, you know, I can admit that I shouldn't be watching that as long as is with anybody, because it is damaging in all forms, on all sides. And so I'm kind of on the fence. As I just said it, I'm kind of on the fence, like as far as, you know, the legalization, if it should be promoted and you know, how it should be controlled. It's a slippery slope. I just hope that everybody can just treat everybody nice and everybody can be protected. And, you know,
let me push back and just let's consider this. I know that you say it shouldn't be promoted. I think a lot of that is, I wouldn't want to promote that for my I don't have any kids, but for my nieces or my nephews or anybody. But I think some of that is because we have sort of these, you know, Western puritanical ideals in our head. A lot of them are, you know, Christian Judeo beliefs that think this stuff is wrong. Other people don't have those beliefs, and so they don't have that same stigma attached to it. Yeah. And just as an idea, we often think about, and most of us think about, oh, you should get an education and get a job and go and get a great job so you can do something and make a lot of money and be successful. You don't want to end up being something like a janitor. This is what I always heard. You don't want to grow up and be a janitor or a maid or something like that. Think of all the people that grow up around the world who are professional butlers. That is their career. That is what they've wanted to do. There are people who have families that have a lineage of butlers. That's what they do. And they pride themselves in servicing other people. And there are prostitutes out there that, I mean, there are some that I imagine that are probably just skanky crackheads, but there are also prostitutes out there that service parts of a society that don't normally have access to physical, you know, interaction with other people, like people who are often, you know, people who are handicapped. There is a whole industry out there of sex workers who service specifically handicapped people, because they are often lacking intimacy and they don't have a way to generally to meet people and have sex, or they just have trouble doing that. And so you can go visit these people and have sex. And that's a very big deal for people like that. Yeah, you know?
Right on. And Zilla, to answer your question, I think I made like a comparison to like drug cartels and sex work or something like that, and somebody got upset. But it's all good. Jaren 215.
That's not an unfair comparison depending on the situation.
Hold on, Jaren 215, $5 super chat. Pimping ain't easy, B. Avery. Thank you for the super chat, man. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Was that your last thing, Larry?
I was just gonna say your comparison to a drug cartel is not wholly unfair depending on the situation.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, they didn't like it. So you know,
because I think what happens is people are often so caught up in the girls and trying to be politically correct and saying, oh, we have to support sex workers and sex positive women and everything else. I agree they should be supported, but there's also that part of the industry that is very dirty and low down and dangerous because it's illegal. Think about how booze was. Booze was like, it was a dirty, violent, ruthless business when they had prohibition. They decriminalized it, made booze legal again. And now you have fancy bars that cost, $20, $50 to go into, and they serve, $12, $18 drinks, Yeah. It's like if you take the illegality out of it, you take that stigma off of it, and all of a sudden people find ways to class it up.